So are complex board games really, really better? What is that experience? What is that narrative? That's the question we're going to chase in this vlog, understanding that it is a little bit subjective, and we all have our personality of board games that we like, but also understanding the phase and the cycle that it goes through. So if you look at my collection, you're like, this guy really likes dungeon crawlers. If you've been following my channel, my board gaming playlist here, I love dungeon crawlers. But within that, there's a wide spectrum. A lot of light titles, almost beer and pretzel, some midweight, but a couple of heavy titles. And if you asked me what I prefer or what do I feel like playing, I have answers for all of them. And I kind of go through these phases. But generally speaking, most of my titles seem to be mid or lightweight because that's kind of the personality that I've evolved to play. So this has been my experience. You find a title or you find an experience that you like. You like that dungeon crawler. And we're just using dungeon crawlers as an example, or RPG board games. As you layer on rules, there's this idea, well, if things become more complex, if they become more nuanced, if they give me more tactical choices, then that increases the game experience. Replayability, just dealing with the unknown, or trying out different combos. If I have 4 characters to play versus 8 or 16 in complexity, those are a lot more combos, per mission and per rules. So what we start to see is games become a lot more interesting the more in detail and challenging the rule set becomes. What I feel we need to leverage this and ask ourselves the question, because you want to make sure when you acquire a title, like, hey, is this something I'm going to regularly play? Is this something that's going to hit the table either solo or with the gaming group or with my friends, as opposed to something you play for once in a while? And, it's not bad, it's good, but it's really just not a regular game that I would play. I have found that as you increase the complexity, you obviously increase the time that it takes to play because you have more rules to look up or more conditions to enforce, or just, hey, it's your turn. What do you want to do? Well, okay, if I move here, I can hit with poison. If I move here, I can hit with combos. This monster might attack, and instead of doing all damage, it does paralysis or poison. In exploring that, not that you deal with analysis paralysis, but you have to make certain decisions. The game turns take longer. Not that critical if you're playing solo, but with a group, it is to consider. But the other aspect is, does it break the immersion? And that's the question for me. Does it break the immersion? I'm playing board games as opposed to a role-playing game because I'm immersing myself into the map, the artwork, the components, the miniatures. When I roll the dice, cast the fates, test things, see things. Yes, there's rules. Yes, there's decisions. Yes, there's things I might have to look up. What do I do this turn with this character? Or this is out of phase. But I find that for myself, it reaches a certain point in complexity where now I regularly have to look things up, regularly calculate things, track things. Then I'm almost playing a role-playing game. And that switch, that jump is very, very different. So with that said, I try to approach games that are more medium weight or lightweight. We'd call them beer and pretzels from that perspective. Maybe not, and I'm a big fan of Talisman. I'm right there out with you, my fellow Talisman players and fans. Talisman's roll and move, and you just do what the card says, and maybe you burn some fate, and you have some character special class abilities. That's beer and pretzels, that's roll and move. There are tactical choices, but the game plays very, very fast. Something that's midweight, a title that I really enjoy and love, would be Runebound. 2nd edition, Runebound 3rd edition. You've got conditions, you've got choices, you're casting the runes, you're buying stuff, you're leveling up, you've got a timer, you've got events. There's a lot of things in play, but nothing that breaks the immersion. And then we have games like Kingdom Death Monster, which push things to the limit of there's a lot to track, there's a lot to do, the AI is awesome. That's kind of my limit. Gloomhaven, and I'm just throwing some examples out there, maybe you have these titles in your collection or you're thinking about exploring them. There are titles where you really need to play them or see them because the level of complexity is there, but it's not necessarily something that's going to break. What do I mean by that is I love Gloomy. It is complex. There is a flow chart, but it's more complex in that you have to learn how the game flows and plays. Once that happens, and that does take a little while, there is a lot of spice and bite to the game. But once you get that flow down, and there's a lot of choices and character classes and unlocks, no spoilers. But once you get that down, the game plays very well, and you can get into the narrative, and you can get into the excitement, and you can get into the story. It just requires that upfront investment. So from that perspective, board game complexity, what is the make or break level for you?